Hey everyone, I'm Matt,
I'm Deanna.
and in today's episode, we're talking about why we never use baby talk and we always talk to our kids like equals. So, in this episode, we're going to dive into the approach of never using baby talk with our children and discuss why us talking to them like equals has helped them foster a stronger communication and better respect and better understanding for the rules and expectations that we set for them.
Yeah.
Um, I want to first start it off by saying, once again, this podcast is not expert advice. It's not.
That-
Um, and in addition to that, just because we stumbled upon this
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you're doing it the wrong way.
Right. It's not a one size fits all. It's
No.
just something that worked for us and we liked how the end results
Yeah.
were going, and we just kind of adapted it with all three of our kids.
Yeah. And why did we start talking to them like they were adults? We don't know. We didn't plan it. We really didn't notice that we talked to our kids like adults until it was brought to our attention by family and friends giving us compliments. They would compliment us on saying, I really like how you're raising your kids and how you talk to them like adults and you don't talk to them like kids.
Yeah.
And it was kind of eye opening because I had to step back and take a second and think,
I guess we do
yeah, we
that.
do that. So either we stumbled upon something great
Yeah.
and we set them up for success, or we stumbled upon something that is going to ruin their lives.
It'll ruin their lives.
So yeah, we did not plan on raising our kids this way. It just happens, and we didn't even realize that we were doing it until we were complimented on it. So at least one person out there thinks we're doing it right,
Yeah.
and so
I don't even know who that person is.
I'll take it. Um, so baby talk is um, a powerful way to get a child's attention
Hmm.
because they hear that voice. It's a higher pitched tone. But what I was reading online once I wanted to do this topic is that there is no function in that language that's being used besides getting their attention.
Kind of like a dog.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I would say, and as funny as that is, I would say that I baby talk the dog.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and I don't do it with my children. Now, even though baby talk will get them to imitate you,
Mhm.
you don't want them to imitate those wrong words, those wrong
Mhm.
inflections, the way that you're talking
Yeah.
to them like a baby. Um, um, you don't want them to repeat incorrect grammar and silly words. Now, I understand, the kids, they're going to be silly, but also when you're teaching them how to speak, how to communicate, you want them to get the full understanding, the full picture
Yeah.
of that word, right?
Yeah, and I remember when Preston first started, he was like of the age to talk, and
Hmm.
he just refused to talk.
Yeah,
Refused. He relied heavily on sign language.
yeah.
So we would just teach him more and more sign language.
Mhm.
And then it got to the point where the state like assisted us
Mhm.
with speech, and they basically said no more sign language.
Yeah,
Like he's using it as a crutch. And then it was he had to make a sound like, oh, you want milk.
yeah,
Okay, say milk.
yeah.
And then, he would throw these temper tantrums because now we're asking him to do something that he has never had to do.
Right.
And it was, they said, no matter what, if he makes a sound,
Yeah.
even if it's like nowhere near it, then give it to him because then he needs to associate that sound. So for him, it went from inaccurate sounds
Yeah.
to then we need to kind of wrap it up and reel it back into
Make a
what it
real word
should.
out of it.
Yes. So our start of parenthood
Hmm.
started out that way in terms of like we can't do baby talk. We can't do um shortened versions because he was 3 and he wasn't talking.
They need to learn how
Yes.
to talk, how to communicate, and and that's what the speech pathologist told us too. Like,
Mhm.
no more abbreviating anything.
Mhm.
No more calling milk by a nickname or calling a bottle like no more
Baba.
a baba. Yeah, no more doing that. You have to call it what it is. So, and a couple examples of how we talk to our kids like adults, especially now that they're a little bit older. um and let me back up for a second. Now, when I say that we're talking to our kids like adults, that means we are communicating to them. That doesn't mean that we're not letting them have a childhood.
Right,
That's not
yes.
mean we're saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe that, you believe in this," or,
Yeah.
we're not saying that you can't, have an imagination, you can't have imaginary friends or play imaginary or have that creativeness. We are just talking along the lines of communication. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, with that being said, all 3 of our kids have amazing
They
imaginations.
do.
Even, like, our oldest,
Mhm.
he'll still do imaginary play with the 2 younger,
Yeah.
and, that's, like, 50% because that's just, how he is. He's very creative,
Yep.
and then also forced because
Because you have to play with your brothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to play with your brothers right now because they're driving me crazy. I need a break to get dinner ready,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay. So back to what I was saying. Um, Examples of how we talk to our kids like adults. So one is, and I think it's very important, is kind of cause and effect. Like,
Yeah.
whether it's they make a bad choice at school,
Yeah.
or whether it's riding your bike without a helmet on,
Yes.
or
I think we're the only family that really pushes that in our
yeah, in our
neighborhood.
neighborhoods. Yeah, I mean, in our neighborhood, you'll see kids riding hoverboards 20 miles an hour with no
Yeah,
shirt on.
dirt bikes.
Yeah.
It's the
So
wild, wild west out here.
we try to show cause and effect. Um, we try not to have them be we try to have them be cautious, but not too cautious. Kind of, we still let them be kids, try new things, but we also want their thinking to be, okay, if I do this, then this could possibly happen. For
Yeah.
example, they're out there, four, five, six kids in a trampoline,
Yeah.
and I gently remind them, well, gently the first time, remind them, hey, buddy, you have a soccer tournament this weekend. If you get hurt, you're really gonna let your team down,
Yeah.
you know? Um, Not, instead of saying, "Oh, hey buddy, just, hey buddy, calm down. Hey buddy, calm down." You
Yeah.
explain it to them like, "Hey, your team's counting on you."
Yeah, you have to have the forefront. You have to
Yeah,
think long term. You have to think like, okay, are we getting too crazy? Could
yeah,
somebody potentially get hurt without planting that seed of doubt?
right.
Because you don't want them to limit their bodies
Mhm.
and what they can do. And I think that it's important for them to learn their own cause and effects.
Yeah,
But if they're in a situation that they aren't familiar with, or, they just need that gentle reminder, giving it to them in a way in which it doesn't plant that seed of doubt.
yeah.
I think that's
And
kind
we're
of what we stem on.
back and forth, like,
Yeah.
so, jumping in a trampoline, five or six kids, someone's gonna step on your feet, you're gonna bonk head something, and then you won't be able to do a soccer tournament. So then we tell them to calm down, right? You gotta just be careful,
Yeah.
right? Maybe kick two or three of those kids out and
Maybe
just
have a limit,
yeah,
time limit,
and then the
rotations.
on the other way around, if the kid's too apprehensive with something, like our littlest doesn't want to do the water slide,
Yeah.
we still encourage him to do it. So it's not like we're just saying don't do stuff, don't do stuff. We are encouraging other things, and it's really just showing him the cause and effect. Like, if this happens, this could be the result of that. Same thing with the positive stuff. If you go down the water slide, you're gonna love it, and you're
Yeah.
never gonna want to stop doing it. So why don't you try it out?
Right. And I think the other side of things is the fact that if it's something that they're not comfortable with,
Yeah.
Having that conversation with them, like, why aren't you comfortable with it? Like,
Right.
why don't you want to do it? Why
And
don't
that
you want to challenge yourself? And what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, what inside your head is stopping you because you think that this is the worst case scenario?
right.
And is that worst case scenario really that bad
Right.
to
Yeah. And
justify not trying it?
that leads to the second thing on here is examples of how we talk to our kids like adults. You especially let the kids lead the discussion, whether it's something that happened at school or they don't want to do something. Um, for example, with the sports, when they
Mhm.
don't, we sign them up for sports, they don't want to do it. Okay, why don't you want to do it?
Yeah.
Whether they're right or wrong, we let them finish talking.
Yeah, and I think a great example of that is with Braden, our middle kid.
Mm,
He's been 100% soccer since the day that he could kick a ball.
yeah,
And with his soccer career, I would say at this point,
yeah, yeah.
he has evolved as a player. And there is a local club that wanted him to try out,
Hmm.
essentially.
A higher club, higher skilled
Yes,
club.
higher scope. Because at that point in time, he was just playing, or I don't want to say just, he was playing at the rec level.
Right,
And the two, the rec and the club kind of feed into each other.
right.
So the club asked him to come out and try out for the club team. So I thought that it was a great idea. It was a great opportunity. He got there, he literally stepped on the field, looked around at all the people, and he said, no.
Yeah,
And I was like, Braden, you haven't even tried.
right.
Like, you don't know these people. And he's like, I can tell you right now, it's a no. This is not my vibe.
Yeah,
And I was just like, okay, give it the day.
yeah.
If you still feel that way, then, we don't have to pursue this. And it got to the end, and he was like, the answer's still no. And I was like, okay, you gave it a try. You
Yeah,
stepped outside of your boundary. And I mean, granted, I don't know what it was that really like gave him that vibe. And maybe he's more like me,
yeah,
like what we were talking about in our previous discussion
yeah.
was, you just
Get that feeling.
you get that feeling because, he later, a few years later, he transitioned over to a different rec team with a different club that feeds into it.
Yeah,
And he gave that a try and he's like, I love it.
yeah. So we let him lead a discussion
Yes.
and we let him make a choice.
And we encouraged him to step outside of his boundary of comfort.
Yeah. So far we have cause and effect. We teach our kids cause and effect. We talk to them about, if this happens, then this will be the outcome. We lead discussions. I'm sorry, we let them lead discussions and we give our input on it, trying to encourage them into the way that mostly what we want or what we think is
Hmm.
best for them. And then the last thing, it's kind of a small thing, but when they were growing up, we never gave anybody nicknames.
Yes.
Our aunts, or I'm sorry, the kids' aunts and uncles, even their brothers' names. We never gave them nicknames because we wanted them to be able to say, pronounce
Yeah.
uncle, aunt, things of that nature, names like that, instead of relying on a crutch of just two small sounds put together.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a big one. Because our family is so big and there's already like a full list of nicknames established.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of like a thorn in a lot of my siblings' side because they
Yeah.
went from, like TT to Aunt Harmony.
Right. Right.
Like,
Well, and I mean, it's cute. I
it
understand
is,
it.
yeah.
It's cute. It's a nice, family tradition to have, but it was just something that we did. And another thing that I was researching online showed that during the first 3 years, kids mean or learn the meaning of many words, signs, and other forms of communication. So once again, I know we think, oh, they're babies, they don't know how to talk. They don't really understand what anything it means. Maybe my inflection will make them pay more attention to me
Yeah.
or learn something different. But the first 3 years,
They're sponges.
exactly.
They just soak it all up.
Yeah. And like you said, um, infants and toddlers show their needs and wants. And if they don't know how to communicate, obviously they do it through crying, through screaming,
Yeah.
through hitting. And you kind of talked about it earlier about the sign language. All
Mhm.
of our kids knew sign language. We talked to all of them in sign language. Max knew, our youngest, knew the most
Yeah.
sign language. And I think that he actually had the worst speech skills
Yes.
out of all three of them because we taught him so much sign language, and obviously his brothers would help him with everything too,
Yeah,
and they
because
knew sign
everybody was at
language.
home when he was a baby
Yeah,
baby, and when he was developing, everybody was home, so it was all hands on deck at all points in time,
yeah,
and that's they already had that prior knowledge, so they would, like, dip into that and teach him, and you're right, he was probably the furthest behind in speech.
yeah,
But now, as he's evolved, he still has his speech issues,
right.
but he does an amazing job of
There's some things that he says that I'm just blown away by, like, oh
right,
my God, how do you understand that? How did you put that sentence together?
right.
Yeah.
And he also does an amazing job of like, okay, mom isn't understanding me, so I'm going to use a different example.
I'll go grab the thing that I'm talking about
Yes,
and explain it to her and show
exactly.
it to her. Yeah. I mean, and it helps them develop, it helps them communicate better with us,
Yeah.
right? So once again, we're not saying that anybody else is out there doing it wrong. This is what we have learned. This is what I'm seeing. So kids, so what we've seen is that kids are sponges. The first 3 years of their lives, they do soak in everything and they do try to communicate.
Yeah.
Whether it's crying, whether it's babble here and there, whether it's screaming, even them, doing sign language, and then also on top of it, we don't think about it, them just coloring on a piece of paper with a crayon is a form of like communication.
Yeah. Yes.
So why not start them off on the right foot and use the right, inflections or use the right, the correct way to speak to them, tell them the right words, show them the right words, show them how things are pronounced correctly. So that's my
Yeah.
little talk on that. Now, the benefits of speaking of your kids like adults are communication skills, like we just said
Mhm.
how Max will, even though he might not be hitting the nail on the head every single time when he's trying to tell us something. Because the
Mhm.
funny thing about Max is that, so he's 4 years old, he will try to have an adult conversation with us.
He prefers hanging out with the adults more than he prefers
Yeah.
hanging out with kids his age, and that's why he loathes the idea of school.
So he tries to have an adult conversation with us, which I think is because we have shown him that we are willing to talk to him like an adult.
Yeah.
So he will have a conversation with us like an adult. And even though we don't always understand some of the words that he's putting together, he still has worked on those communication skills, and can figure it out. You know, he can think of how he can tell us another way
Yes.
while using his words at the same time. Kind of like how when he was learning to talk and we had the speech pathologist help us, she said, you can do signs, but make sure that he is looking at your mouth and do the signs while you're saying it. Don't
Yeah.
just silently do your sign
Yeah.
language.
Do like a little tap on your mouth so
Yeah.
that you can draw his attention.
Yep. Also another way of us seeing the benefits of us talking to our kids like adults, I do believe that they respect more boundaries than other kids that I've
Mhm.
seen.
Yeah.
Um, they understand, when it's mom and dad's work time, instead of saying, because as you may know, we work remote, and instead of us telling our young child, hey, mama and dada are busy. We're just busy right now. We
Yeah.
can't play right now. Mama
Yeah.
and dada are busy. Instead, hey buddy, I have to get on a meeting real quick, but I'll be off in about 30 minutes and then I can talk to you.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and
it
then I can take a break and play with you.
right. And it
Yeah.
goes from kind of baby talk, kind of dumbing it down for them, and not really giving them an explanation of why you can't give them attention right now, and then explaining to them that you have a meeting or what the reason is or that you have to work. And I really do think that that's worked wonders, especially for Max, because he was the first baby where we were first both
Both.
fully
Yeah.
remote. And he understands that now. Like if we're in a meeting,
Mhm.
he opens the door very quietly and just goes over to the person that doesn't have a headset on.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
very quietly whispers.
yeah, yeah.
9
So
times out of 10, it's nothing of any importance, but it
no,
is very important to them.
yeah. So so that being said, the kids also understand, I believe, understand more consequences and rules because of the whole how we teach them the cause and effect thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So they know that what we set expectations out for them, this is how our family is. This is our family rules.
Mhm.
This is how we look at life and how we think that you should behave.
Yeah,
And these are the consequences if you don't behave that way. And I think they typically abide by those rules. For example, Preston,
yeah.
he has always been a great student.
Mhm.
Our deal with him, and we've told him point blank, we treated it like an adult, kind of like your manager would at work. If you don't mess up, I'm not bothering you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to micromanage you.
If you're putting in the work and your results are where you want them to be and
Yep.
where we agree they should be,
Yeah,
then yeah. And mind you, we're not demanding straight A's out of our child. We're not demanding 100% all the time out of our child.
I am.
You are not. But and that conversation happens before like the school year even begins. It's like,
Right.
hey, what are your goals for this school year?
Mhm.
Okay, these are your goals. Your like his goal was to get straight A's.
4.0.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4.0. He wanted it to be perfect. Um, we're like, okay, that's your goal. And then every once in a while, we would check in on the
On
Google
his grades.
Classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, buddy, you need to focus in on this.
Yep.
It looks like you might be down here on this. It looks like you're on point for these subjects, but that's very rare and far between. I think we did that at the beginning of the school year, but
Yep.
now he's gotten a grasp on what is expected, how to maintain it, and what those steps are if he's not doing well. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I got a B on this test. Now I can ask my teacher if there's any extra credit assignments that she has that I could kind of, s- um, do in order to bring that grade up so it doesn't have a big impact on my grade,
Yeah. So
final grade.
you asked him what his goal was this year.
Hmm.
He says, I want to get a 4.0. I want to get straight A's. Okay. No problem, buddy. We will help you do that. And the first semester came and it went and he did pretty good. He started falling off in math.
Yeah,
Yep.
but
So
falling off, it was like an A minus.
no, he was around the B range, which is not bad, right?
It's
I'm not saying that's bad, but he wanted to get straight A's. That was
yeah,
his goal. So
yeah.
I made sure, we made sure that we reached out to his teacher.
Mhm.
Do you have extra credit? How can he study for a test? How can he get, extra practice on this? And now he has straight A's again.
Yeah.
And now when he comes home, he does his homework. Like we don't remind him. He does his homework when he needs to do it.
Yeah.
That being said, and I've reminded him, buddy, if you're not doing your homework, you understand that it comes back on us as a responsibility, right? And he
Yeah.
says yes. So we give him that leeway as long as you are doing everything you can to get the grades that you want.
Yeah.
We're good.
And I mean, we even made that correlation with the chores. Like I know that we've talked about on previous episodes, we've talked about that chorebot thing
Yeah.
app that we use.
Yeah.
And this past week he only flagged that he did like 11 of his chores.
Right.
And I said, well, you only did 11 of it, so I'm only going to give you a percentage of what I should give you on a weekly basis. And
No,
he's
let's
like,
let's back up.
yeah,
11 chores meaning that he has 3 to 4 set chores per day to do. It's not like
yeah,
he's got like to clean the attic,
right.
clean the garage. He has to, dishes, wipe the table down after dinner, and
Charge his phone.
charge his phone. So that's a real hard one.
And then the other one is empty his laundry basket so that
Which
we can do the
more
laundry.
laundry, right?
Yes.
So it's not slave labor or anything.
Right. No,
So
it's
so
all
yes,
respectable, age appropriate. We're not demanding the
right.
stars and the moon from him.
So we have this Chorebot app.
Yeah.
It's hanging on the wall in our kitchen on a smart display,
Yeah.
and they are responsible to do their chores
Yeah. And check them off.
and
Once
check
they're
them off.
done, they got to check them off because it doesn't count unless you check it off.
Right.
So his argument was, Mom, I did all of those. I did all of my chores.
Yeah.
I just forgot to check it off." And I
Mhm.
said, "Okay, well, if you did your homework and you forgot to turn it in, do you get credit for that?
Right.
Or does your teacher say no?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, come on."
And I know it sounds like we're being assholes, but we're teaching them to be responsible for themselves. We're
Right.
not yelling at them. We're not scolding them,
No.
right? We're saying, "Hey, if you did all this work, do that last final step."
Right. You gotta complete it.
And
It
then go,
only impacts you. It doesn't impact us.
yeah,
Like, this is how these are ways for you to be successful.
yeah.
Here are your tools.
And then going back to school for the other kiddo, Braden.
Yeah.
His big thing right now is he wants to get, do really well on spelling tests. And he has a spelling test every week,
Hmm.
and it's always the same thing. Starts off strong, then when it gets to the end, he's got two or three words that he's really iffy on. And we say, hey, go write those 3 times, spell them in your head, say them out loud, all
Make a
that stuff.
song,
Yeah.
make a jingle.
And there's always the breakdown on
Hmm.
Thursday nights, and
Yeah.
we have the conversation. It's not a baby conversation. It's not a, oh, buddy, I know that it sucks. It's Braden. How awesome did you feel last week when you got 100% on your spelling test?
Yeah.
So you can either sit here and, be upset about it, or you can just go study these 3 words for 15 minutes and be very proud of yourself tomorrow after you're done with your,
Exactly.
you know, and we just cause and effect again. If you do this, this is more than likely the outcome.
Yeah. And I mean, on that note, just like a little side story that is really funny. When he first started doing his spelling test at the beginning of the year, he would get like 4 out of 10.
Mhm.
Like, he didn't put in effort at all. He didn't study at all.
Yeah.
And that was the result. It was 4 out of 10. And then the first week he really asked me, he's like, okay, I need help. So we developed a plan. We made cards. We practiced those words. He was on point. He did he spelled all of his words correctly
Yeah.
on his test. And then his teacher marked him down because he capitalized the letters
Oh, yeah.
at the beginning. So
So
he ended up
stupid.
getting a 4 out of 10, but really he got a 10 out of 10 for spelling. And he came home and he was like, "This is bullshit." And I was just like,
Did he say
yeah,
bullshit?
I completely agree with
So
you.
so that's so before I get into that, let me um let me say the practical tips for speaking to your children like grown-ups, like how you can do it. So you're supposed to narrate your life to them, kind of
Mhm.
talk to them like a story,
Okay.
make it interesting, but don't baby talk, don't use some crazy inflections on
Yeah.
something to gain more attention. Speak slowly so they can understand it, because
Hmm.
obviously they don't always understand larger concepts like that sometimes. Um, Pause and let them react.
Okay.
Use real words, obviously no made up words,
Yeah.
which is kind of self-explanatory. You need to and I'm talking anywhere from baby to
Okay.
toddler.
Okay.
Face them when you're talking so they can see
Yeah.
your facial expressions, your lips,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and exaggerate your facial expressions and your voice, as far as if you're telling something dramatic or if you're telling something
Okay, so
sad.
show emotion.
Show emotion,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But that doesn't mean that you cut off the ends of words, rhyming words together, just to
Yeah.
make them to get more intrigued by it. You want
Yeah.
them to be able to understand the proper way, uh, to speak and to learn how to speak. Now, I want to go back to, and this is off topic. I didn't have this written down or anything. I'm gonna go and tell you guys the negative things
Okay.
about talking like an adult to your kids.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, if there's an issue with somebody at school or one of their
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
I will let them know, um, that kid sounds like a bully. That kid sounds like an asshole. Um, and I don't think that you should be hanging around them. Or if there's even a bigger issue, you let me know
Right.
and I will talk to the teacher,
Yeah.
you know? Um,
I've said that multiple times with Preston. He's like, I don't want you involved because you go too hard."
sa- same thing with with even schoolwork. So when Preston was having that a little bit lower grade than what he wanted for math, I told him, "Hey, your teacher is doing tutoring sessions after school." And he got in the car very upset and he said, "I don't want to do it." And so I kind of drilled him and asked him why. And it come to find out that kids in the hallway while passing were making fun of kids that stay after school to get tutoring.
Mm. Those
And
sound
I
like gems.
and I point blank told him, I was like, this kid has nothing to do, whoever you heard or whoever is down talking you, has nothing to do with your future, has
Yeah.
nothing to do with your schoolwork, has nothing to do with your football career, has nothing to do with you, has no impact on your life. So why do you care what they think?
Right, exactly.
If someone, and I told him, I said, if someone does not affect my money, my family, or my health, I don't give a shit what they think.
That's very true.
If it's
Yeah,
negative,
if it's negative, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I've tried to tell him that, and obviously, sometimes that backfires because my adult talking and my attitude gets portrayed. I shouldn't say attitude, my outlook gets
Yeah.
portrayed on them, and then they sometimes relay that to their friends, right?
Yeah.
And can possibly get me in trouble or him in trouble. It's few and far between. And I guess I would rather be open and honest with my kid, talk to him like an adult, say things that my parents didn't say to me.
Yeah.
And not because that my parents didn't communicate with me, because I didn't communicate with my parents. And I really feel that us talking to them like adults opens up that door just wide open for Preston, especially while he's dealing with these difficult times and hard times in middle school. And then,
Yeah,
obviously in
middle
two
school's
years,
so hard
yeah,
to begin with. And
high
then
school,
in high school, yeah, it's a whole different bag.
we have that door open where he can come to us. He can come to us. He can talk to like to adult. If he's really angry, he can swear if he's angry about that situation. He can express his emotions to us
Yeah.
if it's actually, heartfelt, not just fooling around with his friends swearing all the time. That's
Yeah,
not allowed.
no, it's not.
But if he is very passionate about something, he is allowed to come to us. And I am passionately going to respond to him and tell him what I think.
Yeah.
If I was given that advice when I was a kid, like, oh, this person is picking on you,
Mhm.
does he have anything to do with your grades? Does he have anything to do with your home life? Does he have anything to do with your sports? Are you going to know him in 2 to 3
Right.
years?
Yeah, I mean, and for an example in like my life, when I was growing up, I was pretty chunky.
Yeah.
I was a fuller girl,
Hmm.
and I got made fun of for that
Yeah.
a lot. And the comfort that I received, and obviously like as a parent, you don't really want your kid to experience that and like be bullied
Right.
or anything like that. But my mom just simply told me like, "Oh, well, there's more for God to love." And I'm like,
Okay.
"That's great, but
Yeah.
that doesn't help me."
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think that that's part of the reason why.
Do you think you would have been, I guess, healthier earlier, mentally and physically, if she had that conversation with you and kind of said, well, um, you're getting bullied about this, and she tried to kind of like fix it and tell you like, okay, well, let's make a
Yeah,
meal
like,
plan.
I
Let's do
think you're
something like
perfect the
that.
way you are, but if you aren't happy with your own skin,
Yeah,
let's try to figure out a way to make you happy in your own skin.
right. Having a grown-up
Yeah.
conversation instead of
And I mean, that doesn't, I mean, I don't want to seclude, like, I don't want to isolate my mom. Like, that,
no,
it could have, having that conversation with either my mom or my dad, I think
yeah,
would have had a huge impact on me. And that's why I have those types of conversations with our boys and like educating them on food,
yeah,
especially, and like what good food is and what bad food is. And not necessarily using good and bad,
right.
but in
Healthy,
terms, yeah,
non-healthy.
healthy and like a treat essentially.
I think,
So I don't want them to have like a bad outlook on
yeah,
that, but I want them to understand how their body works, how they digest, how their metabolism works, and what good foods feed your muscles, your brain, and all of that, just so that they can have a healthy relationship and learn at a young age. And then hopefully that kind of transpires into their adult life.
yeah. I think some of the baby talk or non-adult talk to our children is because we're so worried about offending them and killing their spirit, right?
Mhm.
So like what you just said, if you know the problem, whether it's a weight issue, there's more of you to love. I understand that. That's coming from a loving place,
Yes.
but not really tackling the issue,
Right, yeah.
And I think it's, you're not trying to diminish your kids' feelings. You're not trying to, sugarcoat stuff, but those kind of things, there's more of you to love, has probably been said for generations,
Yeah.
and it's just something that somebody's parent said to them, or they've heard it before, so then they say it to their kid. It's just kind of a safe thing to say instead of having an adult conversation. Now, I completely understand that weight and self-image and eating healthy and putting a meal plan together, that is something that definitely needs to be handled carefully and,
Yeah.
with care, and you're not just gonna push it off like, I said something, about Preston with that bully at school. Completely
Yeah.
two different things.
Completely handled different ways.
Right.
Your approach was very realistic
Yeah.
and comparable and like sets them up for a good outlook on
Yeah.
how to interact with people down the road.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it comes to nutrition, workout plans, and self image, mental health, all of that I feel like needs to be handled differently, like you said, but
Yeah.
also in a way that they understand.
Yeah.
And like for example, Preston came to me last night and he said, for some reason, for the last 2 weeks, I have just been feeling so angry and so like
Yeah.
rageful, and I don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
And I had to have like, I just broke it down for him like, okay, well, it could be something else, or it could be puberty.
Yeah.
It could be testosterone.
Yeah.
And then here are healthy ways to handle that. Like you could go down in the basement and
Work on it.
work out, go for a run. You got to channel that other side. You can use the punching bag, you can do all of that, or you can try to invest that energy in something that uses the other side of your brain and like start building something,
Yeah.
putting together, do a puzzle. Or, if you don't want to do any of that, you could try to meditate or do yoga and
Yeah.
try to calm it down that way. But and then I told him like you're these are the types of things that you're going to have for your entire life
Yeah.
because of the way that the male anatomy is
Mhm.
compared to the way that the female anatomy is. So if it's bothering you now, it might be heightened because of puberty, but also now is a great time for you to kind of get a grasp to see what works for you.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's just these, I say small, but they're big conversations as far as
Yeah.
probably what is going on in his head.
And
Um,
he has a very engineer
it's very
kind of
is a
mindset
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, okay. Like I can go into depth
Mhm.
and like give him the actual like biology and like the
Right.
makeup, no information. Like it's never too much information for him. He
Right.
loves it. He soaks it up.
Yeah.
Oh,
He understands it. You identify it, and then he
yeah.
can kind of break it down on how on why that works, what you're saying,
Yeah.
why it could work, and how it could work for him. So through all of these stories, I know we kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's still showing that adult conversation,
Right.
right? Everything that we just said, even though we're not giving you, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point about why you should do this, we're kind of giving you life examples of what we have done, what has happened to us,
Mhm.
on how it would be better, or it was better to have an adult conversation, an adult perspective, um, on what that situation needed, or how that situation needed to be analyzed through an adult conversation,
Yeah.
right? So, just to recap, whatever you're doing, I'm sure is working out. What we did and what we are doing is working for us. We talk to our kids like
Yeah.
adults. We have grown-up conversations with them. And I mean, whether they're 4 years old, whether they're 12 years old, we have grown-up adult conversations with them.
And yeah, and it even goes to the point where I mean, I just wanted to bring another point. Like when they do their wellness check or when they go to the doctors,
Mhm.
I just sit there. I am merely their chauffeur. I help Max and communicate, but Braden and Preston, they are in charge of that.
Yeah.
They communicate everything. The doctor talks to him, and I had that one-on-one conversation with their doctor.
Mhm.
Like I think that it's very important for them to be able to depict and to explain what is going on in their body.
Yeah.
And
Instead of
I
mom and dad just telling them, thinking
exactly.
what we know is going on in their body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for them on their behalf
Yeah.
because they are here and they have a voice and I would like them to use it. And she agreed. And that's how we do those kinds of the doctor's appointments because I think that that is something that I wasn't very confident with when I was younger. And I
Mhm.
think that that is very important, especially when it comes to, explaining what, like, even if you're sick
Mhm.
or your mental health
Yeah.
or just describing anything that's going on in your body, you're your best advocate.
Yeah. So to recap the main points, the way that we have raised and um, had conversations with our children, we have seen that the kids can analyze situations a little bit better than their peers.
Hmm.
Right. Another thing is that our kids understand what adults have to do on a daily basis,
Hmm.
as far as grocery shopping, chores, pay bills, and have meetings and have to work. And I also believe that because the way that we've raised them and talked to them, they're a little bit more emotionally stable in difficult situations.
Yeah, and they have a really good response. I
Mhm.
think they handle things a little bit better. Um, I think they both have, or all three of them have their own ways of handling it, but
Yep.
it's definitely a logical approach.
Right. Yeah. So that's it. That's it for this episode. We greatly appreciate everybody tuning in, listening, downloading the episode. Once again, we are on all the streaming platforms, and you can find us on social media at Chasing Balance Podcast.
And we encourage you guys to reach out and share your stories,
Yep.
your input, the way that you do things. Obviously, we love getting any recommendations, tips, tricks, because we're in the same situation,
Yep.
same struggle boat,
Still learning. Yep.
still learning after 12 years, and we love any tips and tricks.
Yep.
This is Chasing Balance, real life parenting, one conversation at a time.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.